We're in now a major trade war between China and the US. So I think the first question a lot of people would have is, who wins? Laura, you first. Who do you think wins?
Well, we've seen China really slip in and take advantage of this moment within the tariff war with President Trump, because we've even seen the leader of Spain meet with the leader of China. China has committed to buying more pork from Spain, something that Spain is afraid they won't be able to import anymore to the United States because of the tariffs. And so China is very aptly and adeptly making their move, because when there is daylight that you can come into, you're going to take it, whether you're a dictatorial country or a democratic country at that, but you're going to take advantage of these situations. And we're seeing China making some very swift moves.
Yeah, I think I share that view. I think the danger is that Donald Trump's legacy is going to be make China great again. I mean, and we're about to find out its extreme leverage. Today, New York Times is reporting that China is about to suspend critical minerals and rare earth metals exports to the United States as part of its retaliation for those tariffs announced from the White House on April the 2nd. I mean, that has the potential to cripple America's car manufacturing, its aerospace industry, some of its defense sectors. So I think we're about to find out the scale and the extent of Chinese power in the world economy. And by taking on China, obviously the sort of MAGA playbook is it reinvigorates and regenerates American manufacturing. It is a huge gamble, and I'm not sure there are many economists out there who believe that, the Midwest will be producing sort of garment factories and all of the extraordinary sort of manufacturing output of Southeast Asia. So I think it's an experiment that could end up benefiting China, not America.
Laura, where do you think we are this week? Where do you think we are? Is America truthfully in the process of losing its position that it has had since the Second World War as the dominant economy in the free world, or is that exaggerated?
No, I think the risk has never been greater. In fact, last week when I was coming back from Aruba, I watched the movie Wicked for the first time. And the end of this Wicked movie, of course, it's Defying Gravity is the big song, right? It's the end of the first act of the Broadway play. It's the end of the big movie. And Trump, until now, really has been defying gravity. Republicans speaking to the White House saying their constituents are incredibly afraid of this economic downturn. You're hearing from Wall Street. You're hearing from the leader of the biggest bank in the United States saying that crisis is looming. These are not existential threats. This is what we're seeing happening on the global stage. Now, some people say last week maybe Trump blinked. Maybe he was brought down to earth. Others are saying this was his art of the deal and what he wanted to do all of the time. But what we do know is that right now, more Americans are starting to say he is now responsible for the U.S. economy. And that is a big shift, because when you come into office after a different president, you can really kind of put the blame on them for a while. Now that Donald Trump's been in a few months and making such a big economic splash, for better and for worse, is what most people see it as. We're looking right now on the new polling, 54% say that Trump's responsible for the economy. 53% of Americans say it's getting worse, and that his handling of the economy has dropped nearly 10 points in 1 month. And so that shows that Americans are incredibly concerned. The world is concerned, and this risks the complete credibility of America going forward. And unless we have some stability, unless there's some consistency, we can't gain the confidence.
Robert, I guess there are two views of this, aren't there, really? I mean, leaving aside the Trumpian view that he's a master 9D chess player, which, given where we are in this process over the last few weeks, I think most neutral observers would view as just absurd, because it's really hard to determine what on earth he is trying to do and what on earth he's trying to achieve, because he keeps changing, apart from anything else, what it is he's trying to achieve. But I think the big question a lot of people kind of observing this neutrally would have is, okay, is this just a blip? Is this going to be, let's not exaggerate. Sure, it's going to be a difficult few weeks, but it'll settle down. He'll do a few deals. It'll back off. And then there's another view, which Laura was just kind of addressing there to a degree, which is that America, something really fundamental has changed. All of our lifetimes, America has been the ultimate safe haven for investment, and that just may no longer be the case, with potentially very, very serious consequences for America and indeed the world. So I guess I'm interested to know where you think we are, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I broadly share Laura's perspective. I think, this is a defining moment. And I think, I think that Europe and China become closer economic partners. I think Moscow and Beijing are celebrating. And I think it's partly the sort of hard economic data we're talking about, isn't it? It's partly the markets and both the stock market and the bond market. It's partly the dollar, but it's also something else that I think is it's kind of more difficult to put your finger on it. But I think we saw it in the data that fewer Europeans and people from outside of the United States are traveling here than ever before. And I think that's the kind of intangible that maybe the most consequential from this period is this loss of American soft power, this sense that America is a less desirable place to do business, to work in, to be a tourist in, that less and less people want to visit America. And that's kind of partly the sort of Trumpian rhetoric has put a lot of people off, but it's also, the deportation of some green card holders and even some American citizens who appear to be in jeopardy of being kind of thrown out of the country now. So I think there's a general sort of combination. I think this is the point of the sort of hard economic data, the tariff war, the trade war, undermining the sort of view of America. But then it's a soft power that America is losing as it cuts aid, cuts back on diplomacy, and is wildly inconsistent in how it sees the rest of the world. So I think that combined makes this a kind of a pivotal moment, and perhaps does suggest that America is at a turning point and will eventually lose its position as the preeminent power in the world.
There's been so much political talk, hasn't there, about one subject above all others when it comes to inflation, the price of eggs. I don't know if either of you are across the price up down of a dozen eggs, whether you want to take a pitch at it, but do either of you want to jump in with where you think that's going, how people are feeling, what the conversation about the conversations you're having with people as you go out and about the economy?
Well, I have to say, my nieces are coming over and we're dyeing Easter eggs this Friday. And luckily, I scooped a bunch of eggs up in the last couple of weeks because when you go to the grocery store, they're not always there. And they've risen by 60% over last time this year, about 6% since Trump came into office. And here's what's interesting is that he campaigned on bringing down egg prices. He said at the State of the Union in March to the country and the world that Joe Biden didn't get those prices down and couldn't handle it. But the thing is, egg prices are often out of the hands of the president, especially because we've seen this big surge in avian flu, where birds get infected, they have to call the chickens and put them down. And so we just don't have that supply. So then the Trump administration tried to inflate that supply by bringing in eggs from Turkey and other countries. Now with the tariffs, that's kind of in question. And he's really taken this on. And so he is making this his fight. And he's talking about bringing the wholesale price of eggs down, but that's not showing in retail politics or retail sales. So I think it's really important that he speaks about it as it pertains to how much money you have in your pocket at the end of the week, that eggs are higher, but this is how we're going to get through it. And he's just not addressing that overall. So that really does make people look at those egg prices and attribute them straight to Trump. And I think it is making an impact.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not big egg consumers in the Moore household, it has to be said. But I mean, $6.23 for a dozen eggs seems to be the sort of average price in America right now. And I'm not sure how that compares to the UK, Tom, but I mean, £4.80, that would equate to. So yeah, it's something that Trump used really as a political messaging point. He always wanted to show Americans that he actually cared, about their kind of daily lives, not about the sort of, the future of democracy or whatever Biden was talking about in the 2024 campaign. So for him, it was always like a marketing and a messaging tool. And I think what we've discovered is, as Laura quite rightly says, is, of course, once governing, it's apparent that egg prices are not in the hands of the White House, but in the hands of the industry and obviously influenced by avian flu outbreaks and things like that. So it was always just a campaigning tool as I saw it, and egg prices are not something in the hands of the President of the United States.
I was listening to a long discussion this morning about what the chairman of the Fed was going to do. On the one hand, he's got a lot of talk about a potential recession. Consumer sentiment seems to be weakening by the day in America. On the other hand, he's got to worry about the potential for tariffs spiking inflation. So, the debate was, does he put up interest rates to deal with inflation? Does he cut interest rates to try and stimulate the economy? And of course, all the time he's being attacked by Donald Trump anyway. How worried do you think American consumers are about the state of the economy? Are they mostly taking this uncertainty on the chin, or are they beginning to think, no, this is bad, we're heading for a recession? I'm just kind of really keen to know what both of you are picking up, when you're listening to the news networks, when you're speaking to friends. Laura, maybe you first. Where do you think Americans really are?
It is absolutely top of mind. We'll hear from Jerome Powell from the Fed this week, Wednesday. So this week has got a couple of big areas to look at. One is Powell making remarks Wednesday. Another one is whether or not the administration is going to come out and talk about these tariffs that they're looking at doing in another bucket when it comes to computer chips and semiconductors, et cetera. And the other thing is retail sales, because retail sales will show us if people have been stocking up before they think they're going to get hit by tariffs. Those come out later in the week as well. And right now, I'm hearing from a lot of friends that they're stocking up on things their kids need for the summer. And these are people that are spanning all incomes, low, middle, and high. They're stocking up on goods that they think they're going to need because they're waking up every day and it's top of mind. Because whether or not you're existing out of your savings account as an elder American, like my parents are, they're checking it every day and they've seen a big drop and that's what they live off of. Or if you're looking to your kids' college education that you're getting ready to write a big check for, this is top of mind. And it's the number one issue that people really voted for Trump on. And so it's the one that he's at most at risk for. But a lot of people are questioning, he kind of made this crater last week, right? He did, with the tariff announcement and going through with it. And then he paused it. And it's not back to where it once was. So who takes responsibility for that? Does the Trump administration come out with a different economic proposal that makes great gains? Does the Fed swoop in and save you? A lot of people kind of feel at a loss on who's out there that's going to make a difference.
Robert, you've lived through good times in the American economy and bad. Where are we right now?
We just had a news team down in Kentucky yesterday talking to farmers and to sort of residents there. And they came back and said, look, actually, people are still prepared to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. We expected to encounter people deeply resentful of tariffs because it would affect the agricultural exports of Kentucky. But actually, people were still making that old reference. Look, Trump is a businessman. He knows what he's doing. He's made a lot of money in his own life. He's lost some, of course, too, but they didn't sort of focus on that. And so I think there is still, remarkably perhaps, but there is still kind of residual belief that Trump's instincts on this may yet be right. So I wouldn't say that the politics of this are going to catch up immediately on Donald Trump. We haven't even reached the 100-day mark of his second term. I think the point is these are decisive days, but the kind of political reaction to it in the heartland, in sort of southern states like Kentucky, that still hasn't yet kind of fermented towards resentment of the White House. They still want to believe in Trump. Many of them still do believe in him. And so I think that's the sort of interplay we're at. Does the politics of this moment catch up with the sort of economic danger that Wall Street sees?